freaking first cut. Golly. Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your recap episode for this week's Houston Open. Joining me to break it all down, it's Greg DuCharme. Greg, hey, buddy.
What's going on, Rick? First of all, I would like to say what a call by you with Jason Kokrak. I mean, tip of the cap to you, sir. Because I understand where you're coming from, but I didn't quite see it the way you did.
I was saying to you briefly off air, I don't generally like to toot my own horn, but this like 8-week swing season, I've been all over it. And I know it's gonna end soon because it never goes very long, Greg. Golf is weird. Trying to handicap it is incredibly difficult. But yes, I will accept it in this moment. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was it was brilliant. And you're watching it, it looks so obvious, but because you can just see why it would work out for him, why the golf course would fit his game really well. The hard thing to predict is the putting performance. I think he ended up in second in strokes gained putting. He was right there in the top 5 anyway. And so for Jason Kokrak, that's a big hinge point for him. And this week, it really worked out. So incredibly impressive. And by the way, how often do you see a winner with a 41 for 1-9? That's the thing that strikes me. He made a triple. He shot a 41 and was able to win the tournament by 2 shots.
Yeah, I want to get into that, but I'm going to hold off for just 1 second because that was a very interesting moment of his week. It was the completion of his round 2 on Saturday morning. We're going to get to that. We're going to go through the leaderboard. We're going to get to our best bets. We'll recap the one and done. We've seen some movement at the top here. And I believe we're waiting on Kyle Porter as well. So while we do that, Greg, you and I, before we went hot, we were kind of talking about this golf course, Memorial Park. And when you see 10 under as the winning score, that's a little eye-popping on the PGA Tour because it's not often, especially outside of major championships, that we're going to see something that low, that high. What is the proper terminology? That high or that low?
That high.
That high. Okay.
Well, either. I don't think either is if you're talking about total score, it's high.
Right.
You're talking about under par, it's
also high.
I guess it's also high.
Either way, Memorial Park puts up a fight now for back-to-back years. And we were kind of trying to figure out why this course is hard. So I'll just throw this at you. Like, why is this course hard?
I think the length has a lot to do with it. And you look at some of the most difficult holes for the week. And I have round 4 up, but let's get to cumulative. So the very first hole, it's a 522-yard par 4. That's not very easy. For the 6th hardest hole is a 490-yard par 4. You continue on down the list. You got 14. It's a 530-yard par 4. That was the hardest hole on the course for the week. 12, 496-yard par 4. That was the 3rd hardest for the week. And then you add in some of these par 3s. Number 11 stands out. That's the 5th hardest hole on the course. It's a 237-yard par 3. And then 18, again, 503. So you have yet another par 4 with that kind of length. And all it does is it takes the club you have into the green. It expands it. So it's a much longer club in the green. And if you're in the rough, even though the rough is low, now you lose your spin control and the ball can get off into some of these runoff areas. And that's really the part of the defense. When you miss on the edges out here, the ball will shoot away. And we saw it with Scottie Scheffler on the back 9. Forgive me for forgetting what hole it was exactly, but he was in the right rough and he hit one over the green that takes a really hard bounce. And if it weren't for a golf car there, which was already some 30 yards behind the green, that kid could have gone 40 yards long.
Yeah.
So, a miss by a couple of yards and it can turn into a 30 or 40 yard miss. And then you got some funky lies, some hairy lies. What you saw, a lot of chunked chips, a lot of one-handed finishes on pitch shots. So the areas around the greens were really difficult, and the length is a huge factor in that.
Jason Kokrak wins the Houston Open, which is something that was pretty unlikely, I would say, Saturday morning as he completed his second round. Remember, there was a 3-hour delay early in this tournament. So just to recap what we were alluding to earlier, and Jason actually mentioned this in his post-round interview, Greg. He said, yeah, I came out Saturday morning. It was really cold and I didn't really want to be out there, and it was really tough conditions. Well, during that 9-hole stretch, I think he actually only played like 7 holes on Saturday morning. Bogey, double, par, bogey, par, triple. A 41 on that 9, and you are thinking, he's out of it. It's over. It's been a good run for Jason Kokrak, but this kind of wave and the way this all turned out, that right there could have sunk him, should have sunk him.
It sinks almost everybody. I mean, all the work you've done leading into that is wiped away. It's just gone. And you, on a golf course where it's hard to make birdies, you look at that. I'm now fighting this insurmountable uphill battle. And he just continued to plod along and make birdie after birdie after birdie. He made 24 birdies for the week. He made 24 birdies.
And got to 10 under.
and right, only got to 10 under. So Scottie Scheffler made 21 birdies. So he had 3 more birdies than anybody else. But after Scottie Scheffler, and that's why he's such a DFS darling. After Scottie Scheffler, you're looking at Cam Smith and Martin Trainer. They're at 17 birdies, 16 for Henley, Kramer, Hickok, and Andrew Putnam. So birdies were difficult to come by, and Jason Kokrak made way more than anybody else. And that's a really big difference. You make 3 more birdies than the second guy in the field, and you make 7 more than the guy that's third. It's a huge difference. Makes up for a lot of mistakes, of course. Makes up for a triple, a double, a 41 on one side, but that doesn't happen very often.
On the weekend, or I should I say his final 2 rounds, because there was that weird, 7 holes he had to finish. He was 4 shots better. Jason Kokrak was 4 shots better than anybody else in the field over the final 2 rounds. He gained nearly 11 strokes on the field in those 2 rounds. But the moment on Sunday, Greg, it was really 13, because he was sitting, on 13T, a couple of shots back. I'm scratching my head going, oh my God, is Martin Trainer is he going to do this? Is he actually going to win this golf tournament? Is Scottie Scheffler going to steal this? And then Jason Kokrak said, I'm all in. Birdies 13, 14, 15, and 16, which really changed the entire complexity of this event. 13 and 14 were playing, 14 was playing very difficult, the hardest hole of the day. He stuffs one on 15, which is the short par 3, gets the job done at 16. That's the par 5. I mean, it was clinical over the final 6 holes.
And there were a couple of things he did during this stretch that is unique to Jason Kokrak, right? Unique to what you would expect his style to be. So 13, where this all starts, it's a 326-yard hole. I would expect him to hit driver and go for it. Maybe if he wasn't quite comfortable, at least a 3 would.
So right? I obviously am holding this, 54-1 ticket. And when I saw him pull iron off 13, I was like, it's over. Like, this is not like Kokrak's long. It's this short par 4. I just watched whatever Trainer did. I'm just like, it's over. That is an excellent point. It was so not what I was expecting.
And he by this time he had the lead, but he lays up on the par 5, 16th hole as well. And he did say there was a little bit of mud on the ball, but he converted both of those uncharacteristic layups. On the par 5, he had 269 to the hole, and the hole was all the way in the back. So my guess would be he had 230 to the front edge. Now, you can't miss that right at all if you're only going to play it but point is, he has plenty of firepower to reach and decides to lay up, and he's able to convert. But so that one, because of the situation had changed, it was a lot less peculiar to me. But 13 was really peculiar. And you look at that hole, and it's a uncharacteristic drivable par 4. And I know they moved the tees up a little bit. It's not always drivable, but it's not like there's daunting bunkers or a water hazard or penalty area looming anywhere. It's just that fall off area. So on TV, it just looks like a field. It doesn't look like, is he going to go for it or is he not? We were talking about before the show, the drivable par 4 that stands out in everybody's mind, 10 at Riviera, which maybe isn't fair compared to, because it's one of the best holes on the PGA Tour every year. But this one looks very different. Yet you still see some guys get in trouble where they land on one of those side banks, it pitches away and makes it hard to make birdie. So he trusted his game plan and his wedge play and converted. But what he really trusted was his putter. He has to make a 12-foot putt there. He makes a 23-foot putt at the next hole, and that's all of a sudden what gets the ball rolling. No pun intended.
That's good. The big thing, and we've documented this for however many months. It's what you hear constantly on the broadcast. It's what you see in the statistics. Jason Kokrak has been easily one of the most improved putters on the PGA Tour in the last 12 months or so, something like that. And the only thing we ever hear about that, Greg, is that he lengthened his putter. That's the only thing. He went to a 36-inch putter, whatever it is. That's the only thing we ever hear. And I wonder, I know all these guys are grinding hard and practicing on a lot of things, but like, never in golf is there this magic switch that you can flip. And apparently Jason Kokrak has flipped said switch.
Equipment is really funny in that way. It can make a huge change. Minor details can change everything. And it doesn't seem that way, but all of a sudden your posture changes a little bit. The way your arms hang changes a little bit. So it can change everything down to your grip pressure, but it really has a way of changing your eye line, changing the way that you see the putt. And so when you're looking at a putt in golf, you're looking at a line with your eyes, what we call stacked, where you look down the line because you're standing on the side of the ball, and your right eye for a right-handed player gets lower than your left. Well, everything else we look at in the world, our eyes are at the same height. And so the eye line, the perspective of the eye line can really change. The same happens with a sand wedge versus a driver. The way you aim those clubs, the perception can look very different because you're standing a little farther away with a driver and much closer with a sand wedge. So point being, a 1-inch change in putter length can mean everything. It can literally change everything. And it's clear with Jason Kokrak that it has. Most of the time when guys get on the PGA Tour, they've gone through a lot of this process, and equipment change, therefore, because they're really close to their fit when they get there, the equipment change doesn't have the dramatic improvement of a guy who's never finished inside the top 100 in strokes gained putting, all of a sudden is a top 10 putter. And some weeks the very best. That's a really big difference. So yes, equipment change is a huge deal. It can make a huge difference, and then it changes the confidence. But it's rare to see a jump that large from a simple change.
One last thing on Jason Kokrak. He went, I don't know, 8 years without a victory, right? From 2011 to 2019, no victories anywhere in the world. He has now won thrice, 3 times in his last 28 starts. First off, wow. Second of all, how do we reconcile what is Jason Kokrak moving forward? Is he a threat at major championships? Can he work his way into the top 15 of the world? Is this an anomaly, just a weird stretch of 30 starts? Like, what are we actually dealing with right now?
We're dealing with a real threat is the wrong word, but a real force. This is a guy in Jason Kokrak. I sound like Chris Collinsworth saying that. Now here's a guy.
Here's a guy, because he doesn't know anybody's name or whatever. Here's a guy, right. Number 47. Here's a guy.
Now here's a guy who has a number of the really important aspects to being a successful player on the PGA Tour. So he's got plenty of distance. Last year, he's 21st in driving distance, basically 308 yards. He's also above the 60% mark, which if you're one of those guys who was playing 20 years ago, you're not thinking that's a really good number. But at 308 yards, that's a really good number. So he's long, and he's got it in control. He hits a lot of greens. He was 24th last year in greens of regulation. And when you add that kind of distance together with that kind of putter, it's a recipe for victory. You hit the ball okay with your irons, but at that distance, there's a way to change this is what Bryson does. He changes the value of strokes gained approach. It's not that he takes away the importance, but the way that it's kept, the way that it's tracked appears different than the eventual result. I'll give you for instance. Bryson hits it at the PGA Championship on the 6th hole. This stands out to me so much. He hits a pitching wedge out of the rough, and it's able to carry the front bunker, land on the green, and stop nearly right where it was. Tiger Woods hit it on the same hole in the same right rough, but he had to hit this punch 5 wood because of the lie for whatever reason, and his ball lands short of the green and rolls off the back. So Bryson didn't gain a lot in strokes gained approach on that particular hole because it was some 25 feet from the flag, but it lands right where it lands and ends up in basically the same place. So that's a huge advantage. And that's purely from club head speed and distance. And Jason Kokrak has that. And then when you add that kind of putting to it, it makes it a lot easier to take advantage of that. You start hitting 70% of your greens in regulation. And that GIR number is not very important. What we've seen, the data doesn't really correlate greens in regulation with success. But if you're putting the ball the way Jason Kokrak is, now it means something because you have a lot more birdie opportunities and you're going to make a couple. And I think there's a formula there where his game sets up to put a lot of pressure on the putter, and he's definitely figured something out there. So what are we going to get in major championships? I still think his short game needs a little bit of work. He was 174th last year, strokes gained around the green. And this year, he is slightly gaining, but he's 100th through just a couple of events. Really, this is only his 3rd event, so not much to take from that. But I do think short game has to improve for him to be a real force in majors. But he's certainly a factor, and everywhere he goes, every normal PGA Tour stop, his game has a way of fitting.
Big congrats to Jason Kokrak. Big congrats to everybody out there holding a 50-1 or potentially longer ticket on Kokrak. But let's talk about Scottie Scheffler because he was our overnight leader, Greg. He was the favorite going into the final round, and he was playing like it. Made birdies on 3, 5, and 8. He had a 7-footer on 9 to get this thing to 10 under par. That's the score that Jason Kokrak eventually would win at. He missed the 7-footer. And then immediately made back-to-back bogeys at 10 and 11. We talked about the shot on 14 in which he ended up making a bogey from the golf cart, which could have been much worse. It was not Scottie's Sunday as he still looks to convert on the PGA Tour for the first time.
It's disappointing. That's all. That's what I leave with watching Scottie play. Because you hit it really close at 9, and this is now, okay, Scottie's going to win this tournament. And you miss it, like you mentioned. Now, it's an 8-foot putt, basically. That's no gimme, but under that circumstance, you can really take control of the tournament, and he misses it. But the real key is how the momentum changed. And all of a sudden, there's a question about his putter, because on 10, he's got a pretty straightforward opportunity to get up and down, and he misses now a 6-footer. So now we got 2 in a row inside of 8 feet for par that he's missed. And then you go to 11, and it's not an easy par 3. His ball rolls off that kind of side slope there, but he still leaves himself 7 feet 2 inches and misses it again. So you got 3 really, really close misses in a row, and it was disappointing. And then his back's against the wall, and at 12, he's fighting for a par. It's a long and difficult 2-putt for par, which he did nice on, but it kind of felt like a breath of fresh air. Then he hits it in the trees on 13. He's right under that tree, unable to get it, and has to scramble for par. Another opportunity to make a birdie on a reachable par 4, and he's working way too hard for par. So it became, it went from his tournament to disappointment very quickly in a very short stretch. And so I guess we got to wait. We got to wait a little longer for Scottie to get his first win.
Let me bring another voice into the conversation here. It is one Kyle Porter. KP. Hey, buddy.
What up?
What's going on?
Nothing. Just I don't know what to make of all this. There's a lot of stuff going on. I heard you talking about Scheffler there.
Mm-hmm.
Is it concerning that he hasn't won after 66 events? I think that.
You tell us. Is it concerning that he hasn't won after 66 events?
Well, I think 20 years ago it wouldn't have been, right? I think that our period of our grace period for guys who are starting out the careers has gotten shorter, especially guys that stayed in college for a while. And I don't think it's concerning, especially because of what he did at the Ryder Cup, taking down Rahm, and that's like a huge moment. So it's not like the moment's too big for him type thing. But
he's being tied to those other guys, right? He's being tied to the Victor Hovlands, the Colin Morikawas, the Matt Wolffs, all these guys who are having like immediate success out on the PGA Tour. But I would actually argue, so I didn't know where you were going with the 20 years ago thing. I was going to jump in and be like, no, you're wrong. But like golf is so deep now, and like so many guys can win, that I'm not all that concerned about this at all. Like I don't think it's a big deal at all.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that he plays well at the harder courses, a place like this, but not just this. I mean, look at his major record is really under the radar good. I mean, it's awesome. I think he's got, just off the top of my head, 6 top 20s in his last 9 starts or something like that at major championships. So I don't know. I don't think it's a problem, but I think the question of whether it is a fair one.
The only reason it becomes a problem, Greg, is because we do this thing, and we've done it forever, which is the best player to never win. That's always been a thing, right? And or best player to never win a major, and it was Sergio, and it was Phil, and it was whatever. And then someone has to fill the shoes of that. Now, Abe Answer's off the list. Scottie's been kind of near the top, and I think most people say Scottie's the best player in the world who does not have a PGA Tour win. So it's the only reason we talk about him not winning. If you want to talk about the money list or FedEx Cup points or major championships, he's got a great little resume that he's building, already a member of the Ryder Cup. But as we do, he's the best player in the world who hasn't won.
And look, part of this is at his age. What is he? 26?
Yeah,
maybe even younger.
25.
25 years.
26 in June.
So I'm not sure that a 25-year-old belongs in that category. Although I understand there's been a lot of success out of the youth. Just because you haven't won, that doesn't mean that you're not going. I mean, we could still have a Hall of Fame career here. But
who's in the category?
Ooh, so glad you asked this. I was going to ask that. Right. Go ahead, Greg. Who else is here?
Like, is it a thing where it's like let's go back to the best to not win a major. Do you have to, because I think we're asking 2 different questions. Like, if in May you would have said, who's the best player without a major? Somebody might have said like Matt Kuchar, right? But I would have said Jon Rahm. But that's 2 different questions. One is best player without a major, and one is most accomplished without a major. And so maybe that's what you're referencing
right
here.
Yeah, and that's a big difference. Is Scottie Scheffler the best player without a win? He could be. And again, Colin Morikawa could have been when he first came out before his first win. The question is, who's the best guy who doesn't have a win? And when you're 25 years old, it's not a bad thing to be on that list. If you're 35 years old and you're on that list, it may be a bad thing. So who's the best player? That's not necessarily saying is it the most surprising that he's never won.
Most surprising's good.
I think it's Fleetwood.
That's surprising.
I don't think it's Fleetwood. I think it's Fitzpatrick.
I think Fleetwood's better than Fitzpatrick.
I do not think Fleetwood is remotely close to Fitzpatrick.
Well, like based on what?
The last year.
The last 2
Now-
years.
Yeah, that's fair. And I'm probably like taking that like I'm like widening the lens there, widening the time frame. So last 2 years, I that's a good argument.
Well, I guess, yeah. If you look at it like, who are you most surprised hasn't won yet? I think the answer is Fleetwood. If you're like, who's the best player right now who doesn't have a win? It's probably Fitzpatrick. Zalatoris will get in the conversation, but it is like a gift and a curse, right? Nobody, because you have to be good enough to should have won, right? Like that, like no one's like, can't believe Denny McCarthy hasn't won yet, or can't believe what, you know what I mean?
Martin
Like,
Trainer.
sorry, Denny. Yeah, smart. Like it's just like,
He has one.
so it's a gift and a curse. Yeah, he almost I thought he was going to win this one too.
So
weird.
I guess that's the point, is when you're looking at Will Zalatoris, Will Zalatoris doesn't have the moments where you thought he was going to win. So it doesn't look like a problem. You look at the record and it's T15, T8, a T second, a solo second at the Masters. This is amazing. It doesn't look like there's a problem when Will gets in contention. Scottie, on the other hand, has put himself in contention a little more, and he's had real opportunities where when you're watching with the eye test, you're saying, okay, Scottie Scheffler should win this tournament, and he hasn't, and it's been these issues like the putts inside of 10 feet all of a sudden don't go in. Maybe that's just mathematics. Maybe that becomes a little bit of a problem. Maybe it's just a hurdle for him to jump. So we'll see, but there has to be a turning point for him. And there will be at one point where he faces this putt. I don't know when, I don't know if it's going to happen next week or in the future, but he's going to have a putt that is a tipping point putt. And one day I do believe he'll make it and go on to win. And this will all be behind him.
Well, I think there's a little bit of the conversation of so I saw somebody on Twitter talk, I can't remember who, it might have been Ben Coley retweeting somebody, but talking about how like even some, and I know you guys already talked about Kokrak, but Kokrak has been a pretty good player for a long time, but wins are not linear, right? And this is where I think the value of strokes gained comes into play of like, okay, who are the best guys? I just can't look at wins. It's like looking at touchdowns for the best fantasy football receivers. It's just not a linear thing. It doesn't work like that, you know? And so I look at somebody like Kokrak who wins, and now he's been putting better, so there's improvement to his game. But tee to green, he's basically the same guy for the last 9 years, and then he wins 3 in 28 events. Same thing with Patrick Cantlay, honestly. So it's like Cantlay was supposed to win at the clip that he has won at right now, but it took until you have these bunched up 4 wins in 2021 or 2020, 2021 to get him back on that sort of trajectory. So it's not linear, and Scheffler might win 3 times next May. I have no idea. And I think that part of it matters to the conversation.
While we're going down the narrative media induced conversations, let's continue here, because if Scottie Scheffler would have won on Sunday, we would have also heard, oh my gosh, 4 different guys from the Ryder Cup have won since the Ryder Cup. And we also heard that, not necessarily win, but like, Sung J Im's this, gets a huge boost after the President's Cup. Abraham Ancer gets this big boost. And Greg, I go back and forth on this of like, did that, because the implication is this event has made them a better player, which maybe. It might just be that they're on the team and in this event because they're really good players. And when they go back to the PGA Tour or they go back to the European Tour, they're contending and competing, and this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody.
Well, this year, I think there's 2 ways to look at this. First, the guys that strike me are the ones who have won who didn't make the Ryder Cup team and cited it as a source of inspiration. Right. So that's all of a sudden a drive, and you have a Max Homa in there and a Sam Burns and
a Billy Horschel.
Perhaps Danny Willett. Maybe Danny Willett looks at that Ryder Cup team and says, okay, we need help. I got to get my game in shape, be a part of that. Thomas Peters says, maybe he says, hey,
Kokrak.
Maybe.
should have been on the team.
I don't know. Maybe there's also the chance that we're too far removed. Has he been grinding ever since he didn't get on the Ryder Cup team? I don't know the answer to that, but there's a good chance. But then for the guys that are on the Ryder Cup team, it's one thing when Jon Rahm goes out and wins right after a Ryder Cup. Not that happened, but hypothetically. Okay, Jon Rahm's on that team and he's a part of the Ryder. He's the best player in the world. So yeah, of course he's gonna win and go do great things. If Dustin Johnson wins right after a Ryder Cup, it's kind of the same deal. But if Scottie Scheffler were to win, that's a little bit of a different. He didn't win before. He gets on the team as a captain pick, and now all of a sudden he wins. Did he learn something from these guys coming up? And that's what we've seen in the past, where young players, have gotten the nod for the Ryder Cup team, and they've gotten paired with a veteran who shows them something because there's a little bit of a closer relationship, and they see the way they see the way a veteran prepares, and they learn something new, and all of a sudden the next year they win a major. Now, those stories I do believe in, but it depends on how they got on that Ryder Cup team and what they did before that. Some guys have won, they've done it all, and they just keep doing it all. And other guys, there's a learning curve that they have to jump.
Speaking of statistical things that don't make any sense, Martin Trainer entered the week. Do you want to know? Guess his world rank. Guess his world rank before the week started.
1,310.
Oh man, that's a really good guess, Kyle.
Okay, 1,325.
No, it's 1,310. Did you know that?
Yeah, I looked it up. I just looked it up.
Well, he entered the week 1,310.
I'm prepping for trivia in December with Greg. This is what you have to do. You should get ready.
It's true. Keeping you sharp all year long. We have seen this kind of before. So long story short, this is very well documented this week. Martin Trainer won the Puerto Rico Open in 2019 and then basically missed, I don't know what the exact number, 42 of his next 50 cuts. I mean, he just missed everything. And I think Michael Kim did this too, right? He won and then he missed like 40 cuts in a row.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Which is, I mean, listen, like good for him, right? Like this is the last year of his exemption. He needs to get to, I think the number's around 450 FedEx points. He got like 105 today. So that's good going into 2022. But also, like if you dig into and this is why strokes gain matters. Like he had the putting week of his life. He didn't hit the ball very well, which is not surprising for the 1,310th ranked player in the world. And so he has, you know, essentially the putting week of his life. He made I think I looked at it was 4 putts over 25 feet, which that just doesn't happen. And still couldn't, like he really honestly like needed to get a solo second or third out of that for somebody like him have a chance to earn his card this year, to finish in the top 125 or whatever. I think we talk about wins and losses a ton, but for somebody like him to finish, I was thinking about that as he was finishing his round, to finish third this week, solo third would have been monumental. To finish solo second and get 300 FedEx Cup points. We can joke about FedEx Cup points. It's a big deal to Martin Trainer, you know? And it was just a bummer that he finished 5-5 or something, maybe 2 bogeys in his last 3 to kind of fall back there.
Extremely disappointing because he was at. Go ahead, Rick.
Let me just add this little thing because Kyle is referencing the 7.7 strokes he gained putting this week. By far the best week of his career. His previous best was 4.8. So you know, unlikely to happen again, which is why you kind of want to take advantage of these weeks.
And again, that's really the thing it's the thing that carried him. I mean, he had some nice ball striking rounds as well, but those are few and far between. The guy played 28 events last year on the PGA Tour. He had 6 rounds in the 60s. That's it.
That's crazy.
This year, he's had 2 rounds in the 60s before this tournament. So I'm a big guy. Missed cuts can be there's a really fine line between missing the cut and contending for winning. There's a turning point. Sports psychologists, if you talk to them, they'll say it's 2 shots in a round that make the difference. But when you look at Martin Trainer's scores, it's not 2 shots. It's the total game. I mean, it's 74s and 73s are the norm. And that's concerning. So it was a really big week for him, but it was disappointing that it ended up that way.
So what happens, Greg? Like how does this week happen? You just roll the scorching hot putter of your life, and that gets you good enough to finish T5? I mean, is there any reason to think this could be a catalyst week, or based on the previous 2 years worth of data and information and results that we have, that this will be probably the outlier for Martin Trainer?
Well, I look at this as the outlier, right? He gains, which is so easy to say. So I'm not trying to pile on here, but
yeah,
if you look at what happened beyond just the putting, he finished 4th for the week in strokes gained putting. He gained every single day. But the thing he was able to pair that with was he had these 2 rounds. The first 2 rounds he was able to gain approaching the green and off the tee. I mean, he was second. He gained 3 strokes approaching the green in round 2. He had 16 of 18 greens. And that kind of play doesn't always happen. So how does this happen? It's a comfort with the golf course. It's the need not to go incredibly low. We are sitting at 7 under par, and you're right in the thick of things. You're right there in the mix, in contention on the first page of the leaderboard. Within 3 of the lead. I mean, you're right there, and you're only at 7 under par. So when scores get closer to par, it brings a lot of guys back in the mix. That's what we saw at the PGA Championship this year. Ricky Fowler, who I know has turned it around now, but it wasn't in good form back in May. And you had Padraig Harrington coming tied 4th at the PGA. And Phil Mickelson won because scores aren't that low. And so there seems to be this kind of hot spot. And this has to do with not just the scoring, but also the golf course, where the best players perform the best. But when it's really hard and it's really close to, the winning score is closer to par, and when it's really easy and there's not a lot of penalty for miss, that brings the whole field back in the mix. So I think there's a combination of a lot of things here, but I don't see a lot that says this is a catalyst for Martin Trainer.
So real quick, I wanted to ask, because I was thinking about this. Do you think it's like, let's say so I was comparing like this course, which I think is well, how do I want to do this? There's so many different ways to do this. I'll say this, Greg. Do you think it's easier to come from behind from let's say you're 10 back after the second round, so pretty deep. Like, I guess that's sort of where Kokrak was at. He wasn't 10 back, but he was pretty far back. You think it's easier to come from behind on a course where the scoring variance is wider or narrower?
Wider. And the reason is, so I think
we're witnessing the wheels turning in Greg's brain right now.
Well, I really go back and forth on this, and that's why I ask, because I surely there's a statistical answer, but the problem is you got a lot of variables in that. Okay, well, how many guys are in front of you? Like there's a ton of different things going on there. But I think just in a reductive way, which one do you think is easier?
I think it's when there's when it's bunched, when the score is bunched. And here's why. On Saturday morning, especially at tough venues, you look at a place, I think back to the BMW Championship where John Rahm and DJ were in a playoff. And John Rahm goes out early on Saturday morning. And now he's not that far off the lead, but there's a lot of guys between him and the lead. So his tee time is really early. And the golf course is as easy as it's going to play, and it gets harder and harder and harder throughout the day. So he gets that early tee time. He's not that many strokes back, and he goes out and shoots 4 under par. And all of a sudden, everybody's falling back to him. So it works in this funnel. And now you have the ability to make up a ton of shots without making up a ton of shots on your own ball. Or when the scores are at 25 under par and the afternoon doesn't get a lot harder and you can make a ton of birdies, well, you go shoot 62 and the afternoon guy shoots 65.
Yeah.
And so there's not a lot of ground to make up, where when there's 74 out there on the course for the guys that are playing really well, but in the morning time, there's 66 out there, you can start making up 6, 8 shots rather than 3. So difficulty and the bunchedness, if that's a word.
But wouldn't an easier course create more?
That's what I'm thinking. But I think I still want bunched, right? So hold on. So if you have a course that is
we could talk about this for like an hour.
If you have a course that is very, very easy, or just kind of a better way to look at it is a course is very, very volatile. There's 62s out there and there's 76s out there. It is more likely that you shoot one of the outliers because there's a lot of volatility. Maybe there's a lot of small margins and you can go out and shoot a 60, but at the same time, everyone else is kind of more likely to have a volatile round as well. If the scores are bunched and everybody's between 68 and 72, it will be harder for you to have an extreme outlier round. But if you do, you'll be making up significantly more on the field. There's probably a calculation for this, but I think you want the numbers. But I especially if you're trying to get through, here's what it has to be. It has to be how many guys are between you and the top. Because the more people between you at the top and the more volatile the results are, or the more bunched they are, we would know the range of outcomes for the players ahead of you. So that's the X. X is how many players are in front of you. That's what you need to figure out.
I've gone back and I agree. I've gone back and forth on this like 10 times, and I still don't know which one I actually believe. Right? Because like I even thought about it as it relates to last year, or to I guess earlier this year's U.S. Open, because it was in terms of U.S. Opens, it was much narrow. It was a narrower variance. It wasn't like the huge variance that we see at U.S. Opens. It was narrower than that. And that seemed like it created an opportunity for somebody to kind of come from deeper back, but maybe not, because it was almost impossible to go out and shoot 60. I don't know. I wish somebody would, maybe I should do this. There should be some sort of like mathematical way to figure this out. Although with as many variables as there are, maybe it's just impossible. Maybe you can't do it.
My belief on it is without having the numbers is you have to have the key is what's that high range and what's the late scoring average. If it's easy for the leaders and you got late par fives and things like that, then the risk of them shooting, coming back to you goes down. And so it becomes harder to come back. And you got to get, now when you're charging late and you're on 15 and you've tied the lead, but the leaders are on 3, they're going to blow by you and they're not going to look back. The number you post doesn't become scary, but the number you post becomes scary when pars are good and you have to take on substantial risk to make birdies. Now you have this thought in your mind of, should I go for this pin? I know I'm one back. I got 11 holes left. I'm one back and that's posted. So is this the time or not? And that's where I think you really get the good opportunity when there is that high number that's out there, which goes to your point of variance, Rick. You got to have the volatility or variance in the scores.
And honestly, like that's not dissimilar from what Kokrak did this weekend, right?
Correct.
Where
very similar.
It seems like there's a pretty wide. I mean, you can go shoot 62 on Friday. Scheffler did. And then there's 78s out there, and Kokrak
shot a 41 on a 9.
yeah, he did do that. But he's from tee to green on the weekend. He was good, and he got rewarded for that. So yeah, I don't know. I could be talked into anything with that, but I just thought it was something interesting to think about as it relates to not just this week, but going forward and majors and all that.
Quickly on Matthew Wolff, who bogeyed 16 and 18 to finish his Sunday at 2 over 72. A tie for 11th is his final finishing position. But Greg, I think that there is nothing but optimism for Matthew Wolff, who has started his season here. T11, T5, runner-up, T17. I mean, this is... We're seeing glimpses of greatness. He's done some things that I shake my head at, and I say, oh, that's not a red flag, it's a yellow flag. But all in all, this could not have probably been a better 4 starts for him.
I love what I saw with the short game this week, and that looks to be much improved. Today maybe not great, but he finished the week second strokes gain around the green. I think that's a really big area for him to improve on. But here's the concern with Matthew Wolff. And I don't know what's going on with if he's back with his mental health, if he's back only because he's playing well, kind of like the Bubba Watson thing, where if I'm playing well, I'm happy. If I'm not, I'm not. But what we always worried about when he first started was not the ceiling, not how good he was, not how much talent he has, but is there a lot of inconsistency in his game? So are we seeing, is this 4-week stretch, this 4-week start, just a hot streak, or is this becoming more baseline? And it's going to be really fun if this is baseline. If he's figured something out mentally and improved the short game a little bit, that combination could be dangerous. But I think the jury's still out on Matthew Wolff, because these 4 starts aren't surprising to me. What will be surprising is if this can last for 10 starts. Not that it has to be all 10, but 18 of 20 starts are top 15s. Now that's something, okay, this guy's found some consistency. Something's changed. I'm not ready to say that with just 4 weeks, but it's great play.
Yeah, and I think, his stock going into 2022 is as high as it's been since the end of last year, right? And so I think that's exciting. As somebody who is one of the more exciting players on tour, especially exciting young guys, you go into 2022 thinking the same thing you went into 2021 thinking, which is he could win a major, he could win multiple times, he could be on a President's Cup team. And so I'm glad that we're back to, like, if you would have said 2 months ago, is any of that feasible? I would have said, no, it's not. It wasn't. So I'm glad for this little run in the fall. And I agree with Greg that you have to, especially with the things that he struggled with, you have to do it for a longer period of time. But at least there's like some good optimism and hope for people that enjoy Matthew Wolff and enjoy exciting golf going into next year.
Yeah, think about the way that we were thinking about Matthew Wolff after he went runner-up at the U.S. Open at Winged Foot and then runner-up in a playoff at Shriners. That moment compared to the low of, I guess, the pseudo DQ at the Masters, where I think he missed the cut and he didn't sign his card, so they DQ'd him. It's not like he was playing on the weekend anyway, but like the low of that and then taking the time off. So good to see that he is trending in the right direction. Game is always much better when he is playing well. Gentlemen, we've got to do our odds and ends. We've got to recap our best bets, and there has been some movement in the one and done. More on that, but first we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. Best bets. We did pretty good here. I had Sung J M over Cam Smith. That's showing a push in the outline, but I think I lost that because I believe Cam Smith birdied his last 2. We will confirm that, but I'm pretty sure I lost that. KP, you did go with Matthew Wolff along with Coach over Tony Finau. So you were able to wipe the Coach stink off of this wager and and find yourself a winner.
What did I didn't even see what Finau did.
He missed the cut.
There you go. He didn't have a very good, speaking of post Ryder Cup, he went like T45 MC, I think. Yeah, Wolff's been playing great. So I actually look at it more like I kind of dragged Coach along here. I kind of pulled him into like the winner's circle. And yeah, didn't let him bring me down. So
Good for you. Jacob is working so hard to give me this win right now. So he had in the outline as a push. Then he just typed in the chat, confirmed winner. And then 2 seconds later, loser. Yes. Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate you trying to get me this victory. Sung JM did lose to Cam Smith. Smith birdied his last 2. Mark went with Aaron Wise over Terrell Hatton. That was pretty easy as well because Hatton also missed the cut. Greg, you took one of the Koepkas, and it didn't matter which of the Koepkas you took. You had Koepka over Hatton and Gooch. Hatton also missed the cut. Gooch did indeed make the weekend, but did not play well after the opening round.
Yeah, very disappointing. And this one was all there for the taking. It hinged on Koepka's game, which is so. I mean, you're talking about a matchup. The guy you pick to win, you hope is going to play well, but it wouldn't have taken a lot for Koepka to beat Taylor Gooch. Hatton didn't seem to be in any resemblance of form. Although watching this golf course, the way it played, I kind of feel like Hatton would be a good fit here, even though it didn't go anywhere close to being well. But anyway, Koepka, I guess my read on all the work he's done on the range was on the wrong side. And it looks now like he's putting in all this effort because he's struggling and not because he just found a passion.
I was worried about that. Like my number one question when Brooks says he's been grinding on the range is, why are you telling us this? Your whole shtick is like, I'm cool. I don't need to practice. I show up. I dominate. Are you telling, like, now I'm worried now. Like, that scares me. I wish he was just like walking into this place like, haven't touched my club in 6 weeks. Here we go.
You know how you can find like but like on, if you Google something about let's say anything. the effects of wine on your body, you can find anything. Be like, oh well, you should drink 6 glasses a day. You should never drink it. I mean, anything. And I feel like that's what Koepka is, like a walking Google search. Like, he just says anything, and it's all contradictory. And so it renders what he actually says meaningsless.
It's the opposite. We're the Google search. We hear what we want to hear out of Brooks Koepka when he says something.
Sure.
That's true. Yeah. Because I was looking at here's a guy, Chris Collinsworth again. Here's a guy who was struggling. He was really struggling, and all of a sudden he puts some work in. And he's done this in the past when he plays a week, doesn't go great. The next week, usually a major, goes great. He can figure things out quickly because I know that he keeps it very simple, which I love. And it makes for quick turnarounds. But so that was my read on it, and I was clearly on the wrong side. He's got some work to do. He is doing it. Maybe I was just early on it, but here nor there. We got to take the L on this one.
Yes, we did pretty well as a group, however, so we will take it. Now, one and done. We actually, first of all, we all made money, and we had a few with a couple 100,000. So let me work my way up here. Oh boy. Oh boy. Kyle, I have to start with you.
Yeah.
You are now at 543,927. You had Taylor Gooch. This was a weird week. That's hard to say for Gooch, who was out like a madman in the opening round. And then over his final 3 rounds, he was basically the worst player in the field. He lost nearly 8 strokes to the field over the final 3, lost across the board. I don't care if he loses 5 strokes putting, but didn't strike it all that well. Are there any takeaways, or is this just a weird week where, he had to finish one of his rounds on another morning and just like kind of stuff that messes you up?
I don't know. I mean, I still like the pick, even though he finished 60th. I thought it was like, I liked that nobody else took him. I love the way he was playing. The first round was great. I mean, him and Russell Henley are tied for first during the first round. And I'm like, oh, my sleeper, my one and done. This is lights out. This is, trifecta here. And he just, I was looking today because I didn't see what he did on like Friday or so. I was like, did he get cut? Like, what is going on here after the 65 on Thursday? So I'm bummed about it, but I don't think I would change. Like, I still think based on everything that I knew on Thursday, it was a solid pick.
Yeah, 16,875 for 60th place. Sia Najad went with Sam Burns. Three of us had Sam Burns. Mark, myself, and Sia. We all got 227,813. So Sia moves to 622,000. Now there's a big gap to Coach, which I believe. Hold on, let me do a little quick math here. Yes, okay. Greg, you have surpassed Coach. So Coach is at 2.1 million. He had Matthew Wolff. A couple bogeys down the stretch, dropped him for 166,875. Greg, you had Russell Henley, T7, 227,000. You are now back into fourth place ahead of Coach.
Didn't make up a ton of ground this week. I was kind of hoping for a better, but look, Henley was in the mix this entire week. He gets the same dollar amount as Sam Burns, and I don't lose Sam Burns. So I look at that as a win for me, and I'm very pleased. I just was looking at the start of the day like he might be able to make up a little more ground on Mark. But look, I'm in the mix. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, so Mark and I also got the 227,000 from Sam Burns, who made double on 18 to drop to T7. I moved to 2.5 million. Mark stays clear of the pack at 4.4. But the big winner, get in here, Jacob. The big winner of the week with a birdie on 18 after this thing was over, Scottie Scheffler makes birdie on 18 to get into a tie for second, 667,000. You are just a hair shy, Jacob, of 3 million. And we were talking about that putt. It was worth like 200 grand, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was but ended up being a $400,000 swing if you consider what you guys ended up making versus what Scottie Scheffler ended up making. So I'm glad to see that despite Scottie not being able to make any birdie putts whenever it actually mattered today, and the equivalent of golf junk time to get into a T2, he could easily swing in an 11-foot birdie putt.
It was like Baylor over OU, just that extra field goal.
Yeah,
everybody's
okay.
pissed.
That was strategic, right? Don't they need those 3 points?
Well, it was strategic for producer Jacob as well because he needs the money at the end of the year.
Yeah, so I don't, I'm guessing the money was at the top of mind for Scottie as well there. I don't know how I feel about the pick. I mean, I guess it was the right call.
Yeah, you're thrilled, I think.
I think I'm thrilled. I feel disappointed though still. I mean, I think I'm out on Scottie Scheffler, so I'm glad I burned him here. So that means he's
wow. Okay. Why?
I think it's what we were talking about earlier. The guy just doesn't win. He's going to be, is he going to be like Jason Kokrak where, one of these days, 10 years from now, he starts winning? I don't know. I have bad opinions.
I hope he wins before 10 years from now. That'd be
tough.
tough for him.
They'll probably be playing Bermuda. He could swing over there at some point.
When they add like 90 more events to the schedule and we have like 150 event season.
Yes.
Every week is an opposite field.
And someone wins like 12 times a year. That's going to be awesome. $666,500 for Scottie Scheffler. So here we go. Mark's at 4.4, Jacob at 2.9, Rick at 2.5, Greg at 2.16, Coach at 2.15, C at 622,000, Kyle at 543,000. One more event here coming up, the RSM Classic. I don't know if we'll do the Hero World Challenge. Probably. I don't know. Might as well throw it in there. They give away money for it. But before we put a bow on the Houston Open, gentlemen, any final thoughts?
I missed the Kokrak thing, but I compared Kokrak to Jimmy Walker in my piece after the tournament. Like mid-30s resurgence, could win a major, great driver of the ball. I don't know. That was just kind of one of my takeaways from today.
0 out of 10 level of concern on Brooks Koepka, with 0 being not concerned at all and 10 smashing the panic button.
I'm like a 1. I mean, I just don't.
Well, April's a long way away.
Did you see they gave away Brooks Koepka bobbleheads on Sunday, and he was.
I saw you tried to bribe people on Twitter.
I'm still trying to broker one. If there is a Brooks Koepka Houston Open bobblehead out there, I'll pay the shipping and a couple of beers. That's got to make its way to my back shelf over here.
You can go next to my Vince bobblehead right there.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not worried either, but I feel like you might have said this at some point, Kyle, where it was like, is there a 1% chance that Brooks is Patty Harrington, which is you won multiple majors in a very, very short period of time, and then what?
It's Jason Day, right?
I mean, he's still contending consistently in majors. He did last year. He's had a chance to win.
Jason Day had this and this is where it gets concerning with guys they get hurt a lot. I mean, Brooks has had like the knee and the wrist and the ankle and just all of this stuff.
The hip.
And the hip, he was crawling up the green on 13 at Augusta National. Like there's just a lot of stuff there, a lot of barnacles, right?
This is the other problem, and I completely agree about the injury thing. This is the other problem. Greg's absolutely right. He had 3 top 6s in majors last year, but those are I forgot about them because he made it all about winning majors. He did this to himself. He made it all about him winning majors. So you can't give him credit for any other non-major win. And if he doesn't win a major, now it's like, what are you doing? He created this expectation, which I have fallen into and forgot about his 3 times.
This is sick, by the way.
It's disgusting.
There's not a lot of concern for me when I look at that.
It's so good. So he goes, if you go back to 2016 Baltusrol. No, go back before that. Go 2015, the Open was at St. Andrews. His worst finish is T39 at the 18 Open at No, that was at Carnoustie.
Yeah.
2020 PGA at Harding Park. And then he was cut at the Masters this year. Masters is a little fake news because he was on one leg, and that just, I don't know. He shouldn't have played.
Yeah. But also the T29, he was in contention. That's what he said.
Like the third to last pairing.
Right. Who else on this board has any? I mean, what do they got? 1?
He's played 30 majors and has top 10'd over half of them, 16 of them. That's absurd.
Top 5 I was going back through some tweets from earlier this year, and Justin Ray said that he had a higher top 5 percentage at majors than Tiger.
Oh my God.
I'm nowhere near the panic button. I'm just disappointed in the
I'll step
result.
He should just only play in the majors and the Players and the Ryder Cup. Just don't even play at the other stuff.
He's playing Bryson. He's playing Bryson in a couple weeks. How's that going to go? That's in not next week. It's the week after. Is that right? Yeah.
I think it's going to be goofy. I think it's really hard with 2 guys. I mean, Phil and Tiger, was that 3 years ago when they played on Thanksgiving? It's just really hard to do with 2 guys, and especially with 2 guys who are just kind of awkward to begin with.
Hopefully they lean on the broadcasting team a little more.
Yeah, Phil will be out there.
Phil will, yeah.
The other thing, okay, is there another top 10 athlete in any other sport who is like a legitimate YouTube content creator like Bryson DeChambeau is? Bryson is a legitimate like YouTuber now, and he releases videos, and he's got like 150,000 subscribers. Like, is there any other athlete who does this? I mean, I kind of commend it for giving us the inside look.
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think that's like a world sort of taken up by like disc golf people and like skateboarders. Like, I mean, there are athletes in other sports, just not in any sports that are higher up on the food chain.
There are athletes who have to have a YouTube presence.
Right.
Kyle Berkshire for the long drive kind of has to, because there's not enough prize purses and all that stuff. But like, Bryson doesn't have to have 203,000 subscribers on YouTube, doesn't have to be showing his prototype clubs or his chipping secrets or his speed training or anything like that.
Yeah, it's
kind of fascinating.
It is. And I think I don't know. We don't
have the energy for a Bryson, a mental Bryson.
Well, I want to go down the path of like, it's a little bit of his, like, he wants to be loved, and that's sort of like the one of the outlets for that. But I don't want to get into like that whole deal again, because it's just, we could talk forever about it.
Bryson, I tip my cap to you, sir, on the content creation side. And I guess the golf side of it too. All right. You're pretty good at golf too. That'll do it. Let me give a big thanks to producer Jacob. Does all the hard work behind the scenes. That right there. It's Greg DuCharme. You can find him on Twitter at The Real GFD. Kyle Porter, who you can find at Kyle Porter CBS. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut, and we'll catch you next time.